Um, Welcome to Dhamma Trips, episode 3. I'm here with Nidula or Kusalvin.
Hello.
And we are going to be going into the topic of
Psychedelics, fear, and the Matrix.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it.
Alright, cool.
What is the Matrix? What do you define as the Matrix?
Okay, cool. So this is a question I want your opinion on as well.
Okay.
But alright, so I think the past year, and I think I did an episode on this as well, where the version, most people won't even see it as a Matrix. But if you see the movie, and I think that's why it's that label is given. But when you see it, it's this framework in which humanity is kind of basing its existence on, and everyone's kind of stuck in that same rut of surviving. Like you get money, you make material things, you draw in material things, and eat, you make merry, have sex, and then repeat. On repeat again and again and again. Like their entire existence is based on these concepts that are deemed important to them by society as a whole. So technically society is its own prisoner. But this is the explanation I have been able to put forward as articulate as I can. So imagine a square prison.
Okay.
A cube, right? So all of humanity is behind the bars of this cube. In front of the bars of this cube, so everyone's standing here looking outside, right? In front of the bars of this cube are these ideas or the concepts that are preached as important. So money, material, so houses, jobs, whatever you people deem as important but aren't really important. Right? So wealth, accumulation of wealth, wars, ego, status, power, all of that, right? That's in front of this cage on a big giant screen, and it's playing.
Okay.
Non-stop, it's playing.
Okay.
You need this, you need this, you need this. And all of these people are behind the bars of this cage trying to climb over each other and reach that. But they can't ever get through the bars of this cage.
What about the people who does reach like the top and all that?
So they only get those materialist ideals. They're still within the cage.
Okay.
They're never truly free. But they believe if they get all these things, they will be free. But in reality, they never will be. So the Matrix is essentially this cube, which is conceptualized and continuing through time.
Okay.
These ideas will never change. As in the idea, the concepts will change. Obviously, the what people hold important will change, but the being trapped will not change.
Like for example, like now it's being a doctor or an engineer. Like 100 years ago, they didn't really have these professions. It was something else, maybe. No?
Something else, and also like, accumulation of wealth has always been a human like necessity.
And power.
Power,
the other one,
right?
Wealth and power.
That's that false. It gives them a false sense of control. That false sense of control gives security. But in reality, no one really has control over the outside.
True.
Right? Because everyone believes they have a modicum of control over that immediate surrounding. In reality, you only have control over what you do and your actions.
And life is basically, for most people, I feel like a struggle of trying to control that outside as much as possible.
Yes. So technically, those people
basically make it a reflection of our own egos outside.
And they don't see it.
They don't see it.
So the Matrix is essentially that repetition of being stuck in that system or that cube. Right? But breaking out of it or being free, they don't realize on the other side of the cube. So it has, so the side they're facing on, they're standing on, trying to climb on top of each other, trying to get out. They can't get out. But they don't realize if they take a step back, turn away from it, the door is actually open.
That they can walk out of it.
It's all in their head. The door was open all this time. But they were just not looking the way they were supposed to look. So that, I feel like that door is
Okay.
spirituality,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And then obviously there are different ways of accessing that doorway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Each their own everything. But that doorway has essentially been covered over in the recent past
For sure. Yeah.
and deemed not necessary. But these are more important.
Important. Power, wealth,
Right.
and whatever.
So
yeah.
now humanity is on that negative kind of spiral to a certain extent. A lot of them. Western ideals mainly.
I would call it vibrating on a lower frequency than a higher one.
100% vibrating on a low
Because you do
frequency.
get a certain sense of happiness and joy and all that when you achieve power, wealth and all. But also, I don't think it's a pure one. I think it's again like vibrating on a lower kind of, it's a low kind of high.
Right.
You know?
Small, like relatively small periods of
Yeah.
like little bursts of
Yeah.
things that, like, for example, so which is true.
Yeah.
Like every time you purchase something, you get a dopamine release. But that's only at that point of purchase.
Yeah.
As soon as you take it home, your psyche is already like, how much can I use this for? Did I waste my money? You know?
Yeah.
Will I actually get as much use of this as I placed on it before I bought it?
Yeah.
But those are like marketing concepts, right?
And even after buying it, like a few weeks, months, depends, you lose your interest in it and you want the next big thing. The next big thing never ends.
Always.
It's a constant pursuit.
Always.
I think like to add to what you said, it's almost like we live our lives and society, parents, everyone tells us that if you do this and get here in life, your life will be better. It will almost be like now you're at a 0, you do all this, you'll be at a +1. But this +1 is a massive illusion which is running everyone. But this +1 is an illusion.
Yes.
It
So
always
everyone's
has-
like essentially that hamster on the wheel,
Yeah.
trying to get to the food on the other side. But in reality, you never will if you base it on that form of living.
True.
Your entire existence, if you base it on that,
Yeah, look no further than Trump himself, no? He has all the money in the world and he has all the power in the world, being the ex-president. But then still looking at him and looking at his character, I don't know, it's really disgusting
Yeah.
to most people.
yeah,
And you don't have to look that hard if you really like open your eyes and see the people who have reached where they wanted to reach. You'd see a lot of them are really angry and miserable up to a certain extent, although they do have power and they do have all that wealth.
and you can when you see, like, for example, Trump, when you see him talking or on a stage, you can see that he is vibrating with such low energy. Like it doesn't uplift anyone. It doesn't bring any.
No, but it uplifts all his supporters though, no?
Why? Because they believe in the
Yeah.
concepts that he has
Yeah,
preached to
yeah.
them. So he, essentially, like you said, his dhamma
Yeah.
is poison.
Yeah,
And
it
these
is,
people
it
are
is.
readily like chugging it down because it makes them feel secure. What he's preaching to them makes them feel secure.
And what he's preaching is hold on to your identity almost, no? And that's what I think a lot of people like preach. I think anyone with this patriotic, and I think this is a bit controversial, but anyone who preaches patriotism up to a certain extent is like, our identity is extremely valuable and we need to protect this identity at all costs. And our identity, like for example, Sinhalese or whatever, these other people, they are not our identity and they are threatening us and we need to get rid of them. Like, it's...
I 100% agree with that because those people are operating from fear. They are afraid of losing it within themselves. Therefore, they preach violence to prevent anyone else affecting that identity. But change is inevitable. It always happens with time. Civilizations rise and fall.
Exactly.
I'm not saying Sinhala civilization will fall, but these people are afraid that it will, and those cultural appropriations they have set, that is to be Sinhala in their heads, is going to be destroyed.
Yeah, and it has to be destroyed in order to move forward.
To move forward,
Yeah.
always. But then, 100%. And those people that say, okay, for example, I am proud of where I'm from, but I wouldn't preach that I am afraid of losing it and therefore be violent towards people from other districts.
Yeah.
Technically, if you look at the concept of of the earth, and how we have separated countries by geography, and said, because you are in this part of the world, right, these are the benefits you have. This is the passport that allows you to go from this place to this place of the earth. When you're all human beings of the fucking earth, you should be able to travel regardless. You know, why do we put so much walls in front of us and others and say, look, this is where we are different? Technically, you're not different. You're a human being just like I am. But most of them will not see that. And that's that age-old concept that's still continuing on.
But these concepts do exist. No, I mean, even if you take money is just paper.
Yeah.
And I've done this in school also, where I've taken money and I'm like 10 rupee notes or something, and I throw it in front of other people, and they used to get so triggered by that. And it's like, why are you being triggered? It's just paper. Yes, it holds value, but why are you so much attaching yourself? Why are we respecting this so much when it's just a piece of paper and it's holding something?
Crazy.
and like people, I've noticed like I did it recently also, and that one person, like, she hit me and she was like, why don't do that? And I was like, why? It's just paper. And you're and even by, if I don't destroy, technically it still holds that same value. Why do we have to respect it so much though? What are we respecting here?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing. We've given it that value.
False value.
I mean, we are living in a world of concepts, but because everyone believes in these concepts, that concept has become a reality.
A valuable, like a need for you to be able to survive.
Yeah, it has become a conventional reality almost.
Yes.
No? And I think that's what the Matrix is. It's like, to me at least, it's taking all these things which are not really real, this bunch of concepts, but
and pushing it forward as the real.
Yeah. We play within these concepts and we make them real. But I think the danger is to just know that it's not really real. It's real, but it's not real. It's like conventionally real. Because the truth of the matter is, I think our existence depends on these concepts. And within these concepts, there is a certain amount of joy to be found. For example, like within these concepts are what helps us to find ourselves and experience ourselves and to experience pleasure and joy.
And to essentially function as a society, like a moving society.
That too, yeah. So I think existence depends on concepts, but the problem comes when people start to identify with these concepts as absolute.
Yeah,
that's where the problem comes.
Right, they put the absolute truths in these false concepts.
Yeah, but I think that's really stupid, because you don't have to even look that far to see that this concept is a man-made construct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But the point, like for example, the point you like, I'm born in this island, I'm born in Sri Lanka, and I'm Sinhalese, and you can be grateful for that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing.
Yeah.
But being absolutely identifying with this identity, I think it's really dangerous. It's because that's going to create you and this whole bunch of other people.
Yes.
And you'll automatically hate on those other people.
Yes.
And you'll become excessively proud of yourself when what you are being proud is not something you even chose.
No.
Because we didn't choose
you didn't
to be
choose
born.
To be born. Yeah.
Then why are we even so excessively proud of it? Because I think the reason for that is because we feel ourselves, we feel our ego, we feel our I within that, and that is an addictive kind of feeling.
You've to the people that take it to that extent, they feel that they can identify with that.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is essentially poison. Because now they're basing themselves on that identity, and they don't see past that.
Yeah. The moment you completely identify with something, that's where the problem starts. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like that's where, even with gender, like I feel like it has become this thing where like we have even moved to the point of creating, I know this is a bit controversial, but we've moved to the point of creating genders and identifying with that.
Yeah.
When this entire thing was, because I understand why they're doing it, because there is certain sense of
conflict. Internal conflict.
Yeah, and also certain sense of safety within that identity.
Right.
Because you can go back to it and be like, oh no, this is what I am.
Yeah.
I am a woman or I'm a man, and you can find a certain sense of contentment, security within that identity.
Yeah.
But then you are identifying with something which is not 100% real.
Yes, because the way I see it, even the creation of these new genders came because the concept of male and female was said to be the only two possible scenarios. Biologically, yes, but technically, gender is a spectrum, right? Everyone in themselves has energy that is male, has energy that is female.
That's true. That's
right.
true. I agree.
So
with
some
that.
people
Yeah.
resonate. It could be on either side of that.
And I think our physical bodies are basically manifestation of what is more prominent at that given moment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, but some people, obviously, they can. For example, if I was a man and I resonated more with female energy,
Yeah.
But the current society is saying that if I resonate with female energy, I'm not a female, nor am I a man. Obviously, I'm going to make a certain other gender to feel comfortable in it.
Sorry. Okay, so that's where that stems from. That
Right.
entire, yeah.
Right. Because you don't feel accepted firstly because they are the only two things for you to go ahead, and you're not either. So obviously you're going to make something else, because most people or society as a whole won't see it as a spectrum. A spectrum. So you're different frequencies on that spectrum, right?
Okay.
It's not two extremes. There is two ends of it, but that's not all there is.
Yeah.
There is the middle also.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then you assign all these things, these ideals to the concept of male and female. Gender roles and specifications and things you're supposed to do as a man, things you're supposed to do as a woman. And obviously not everyone's going to resonate with it. Yeah. And that's another poisonous concept that society. So, for example,
But I believe both are poisonous. In the sense, I believe this alpha male mentality, alpha woman mentality, and this in between new genders are coming, all have their downsides.
Yeah.
Which everything is trying to excessively identify with something which is not absolute.
Right. Because
they
refuse to see that it is on a spectrum. So, for example, you speak to like a really, if there are men, and then there are men that want to push forward that they're straight, right? That whole
this alpha,
fucking macho,
mentality,
right? If you have a conversation with them and say, look, your identity as a man is actually a spectrum, they will lose it.
Exactly, because they're so attached to that mentality.
They see it as two different things. They see it as two different spectrums of its own, a male spectrum and a female spectrum. Yeah. That's not how it is. They're on the same thing, just different wavelengths of it. And different people access it in different ways. And the issue is those people weren't able to let go of that concept. And now that concept has become poison in and of itself.
I think, my opinion of it is we are born into this body, and my personal belief is that's because we've developed or we vibrated on probably a more masculine frequency than a feminine one, and therefore this is the manifestation that we were left with. But how we choose to vibrate afterwards is entirely
completely
up to us. And also we don't have to get lost in that role as to so much and have a crisis of identity within, although I realize that it is beyond some people sometimes, as in they can't help it. But there is no overly need to find solace within that identity, because that identity is going to cause us a bit of trouble anyway. We should know when to not identify with it. Because, for example, say now I'm talking with you, and is it this male 25-year-old Usita who is talking with you, who is doing a degree in medicine and who is doing all that, who is talking to you, or am I just a person who is talking to you right now? In this moment, these concepts don't really exist. I love that. Say you meditate and you're focusing on your breath. Are you 25-year-old Usita who is
no.
me, who is breathing?
No.
Or, no, you're not. You are just aware and
breathing. You are just breathing.
You are just the person aware at that breathing. So this concept of male, female becomes not real at that point. That means it's not an absolute truth. That means it's only a momentarily truth. You take up that identity.
Yes, because that moment is your physical existence.
Yes,
That's it.
yes, yes,
that
yes.
doesn't determine your entire sense
existence.
of everything.
And the point where we think it does, and I think a lot of people are lost in it, is where it's going to give us trouble. At the point where we have to exhibit our like gender roles, as you said, then I think we must do it, and we must fulfill it, because that is, we live in a world of concepts. But the time we believe that it is absolute is the problem. Even while we are fulfilling a certain role, it's important not to get lost within that role and to know you are playing a role, and that's what you are doing over here.
Right. But people place false security on these roles.
They do.
That's where it goes wrong. Like, it doesn't, for example, I'm a male, doesn't mean I can't do things, doesn't mean that some things I do will be seen as female.
Okay. Example? What do you mean?
Okay, so society maybe 40 years ago, or a lot of societies even now, believe that women should stay at home, cook and clean, and the man should be the breadwinner. Right? But that whole concept is flawed. Okay? Because that means that stemmed from a place that said, I think in the, like, as a caveman, right? Obviously, as a caveman, your primal instincts are, one, to procreate, two, to fend for the family you create. So different, like, people took upon that role. So the male that was physically able to hunt and was a little bit stronger was given the role to be the breadwinner, right? And then the female was given a different role, to be the rarer, the bringer of this thing. But where we are now as society doesn't require those things. You can be
what you want to be,
whatever the fuck you want to be. So you can still be the breadwinner as a woman or as a man. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. And we are coming to that stage now. So it's important to like step out of those roles and think openly and move into what's best.
Definitely.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean, like, for example, that doesn't mean all men should stay at home or all men should go to work. I think it's very individualistic.
Do whatever you want.
And depends on like that connection or thing you have with the person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And obviously, like, the whole concept of partnering up came so that you could share the burden.
Yeah. Okay. Of survival.
You
can make
like,
it
only survival.
Easier.
Yes. Yeah. You can make it easier on that one person doing it if two people did it, right? If you share it.
And also to have sex and have kids, which are also
right. But those are like those primal human urges that will forever be there.
I don't know.
Like, you will want to procreate anyway, right? That's in your system.
No, but it's not just two people, no? Otherwise even me and you could move in together and then it would help us to society.
Yeah.
But that's not usually the case, no?
Right. But it doesn't mean it can't be done.
Yeah, for sure.
Can be done.
Yeah.
But society, will they accept it or not? That's a whole different story. Most probably here they wouldn't. Would they? No, they wouldn't. Especially if we were older. It would be like a huge, essentially, our external environments would see it as taboo.
What do you think is society? Like, for example, like, we created society, as in not me and you, but the entire generation.
Everyone else created
society. And then we blame society. Like, but what exactly are we blaming here?
I think we are blaming that the point of thinking, like that thought process is the thing we are essentially blaming it as society. So essentially, you got to change yourself to see change reflected.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we are blaming is an accumulative force of the masses' thought process, and that has manifested as society.
Yeah.
Like, majority of the people, if they still are lost in like this primitive cultural this thing, that is obviously going to be reflective of society. Yeah. So if majority of them think that particular way, we are going to have a norm called society, which is basically this energy force of everyone, almost everyone. But of course, there can be people who are against it, but they won't shine because they are not really a part of the mass one. Yeah.
So their energy is shining alone, whereas this greater force of energy is on a lower frequency.
Exactly.
Vibrating at a lower
yeah.
frequency, and therefore they deem these as truths, absolute truths.
And in the past 100 years, perhaps it was mainly gender roles which have taken up a huge space of that. No, of that energy. I think now the shift in energy is a bit different. People are more fluid about these kind of things.
Our generation.
Yes. Yeah.
But we still have to deal with the older generations.
For sure, yeah.
And the older generations are in positions of power.
Yeah.
Therefore, their control, our expression of interest will only be expression of interest, and obviously voicing our opinions as the youth, and like being openly communicative about these concepts that they don't believe in. Because at that time, didn't go.
Yeah. If you take Europe now, they are much more open to things than they were before. Like if you take the Victorian era, the Europeans were like a really closed off bunch of people, and India and all at that age was a much more open society. I think that consciousness kind of shifts from time to time at different times.
Always.
And like we talked about before, I think we are moving into a time period where it's becoming like the cumulative force is starting to be a lot more spiritual.
So it's essentially ascending in frequency.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So in terms of the matrix, right?
Yeah.
Don't you believe that a lot of people are unable to break out of it because they
It's a fear.
Yes, their whole like against, like I don't want to see the matrix, nor do I accept that it exists, because I am afraid. I'm afraid of facing the unknown. I'm afraid of not knowing what's going to happen, because I feel more secure when I think tomorrow this is what I'm going to do at this time, at this place. So that gives that false sense of security. So the concept of time is for us to be able to, so we essentially took a day that the sun rises and sets and said, okay, give it these 12 numbers. Within those 12 numbers are 60 minutes, and within those 60, so we try to label those things, those concepts, labels, to make it easier for us to carry ourselves throughout our daily routine.
Yeah.
But in that, we didn't realize these concepts were malleable. The concept of time is completely malleable, right? Because it only exists as a concept.
Yeah.
Right? It's not something that's tangible.
Yeah.
But in that sense, like if you put the hours, the minutes and things like that. But technically, time in itself doesn't really exist in the framework we've given it to exist.
Yeah.
In reality, there is no past and there's no future.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're basing it on our concept of time, where yesterday is the past.
Yeah.
But in reality, the past and the future and the present are in the same, happening at the same time.
I think it exists. The past, present, yes, the present when you think of it that way, only the present exists. But we can access our idea of what the past is, our idea of what the future is going to be, is also because that is going to help us to go into a higher sense of not a higher sense, but into experiencing a sense of yourself, into experiencing a sense of an ego. Because if you think about an I should always have a past, like I'm this person who came through this, who did this, and an I should also have a future, like I'm a person who is going to do this, who is going to do this. This ego exists because the ego exists to facilitate this, or to make it more solider, like to make it more solidified. This ego, you need a concept of past and future.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would it not fall under experiences rather than past?
Oh, in the sense?
So then it wouldn't. So you said you need the past to get that sense of identity, right?
Yeah.
But that identity is not actually based on time, but it's based on experiences.
True, right. But to get experiences, that itself, the paperwork for that drawing to happen was time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you look at time in itself, the past, present, and the future are all happening together. Because, for example, Usita, when he was 6, and Usita 25
Yeah.
and Usita 45 are already happening right now.
How?
Why? Because to Usita 6, this is the present. To Usita 25, this is still the present.
I'm not following. Is it the 6? 6 is the
Age
present.
6.
Yeah, is the
6
present.
is the present,
Yeah.
right? But to Usita 6 doesn't know what Usita 25 is
Yeah,
or
exactly,
45 is.
exactly.
So, Usita 6 on this day is the same as Usita 25 on this day, as is Usita 45 on the same day. They're all happening at the same time. Your future self is already existing. You just can't see it now.
You're thinking, but isn't that also like a concept? Because what we can access right now, like you said properly, is this moment.
Yes.
And that is me at this particular age.
Right now in the present.
Yeah. And at 45, I will also be in the moment.
That is also the present.
Yeah, that is also the present.
Yes.
So essentially what you're saying is all we can access is the present. And within the present, we can...
All versions of ourselves are already in the present.
I feel like that's also a concept though. Somewhat.
Well, I guess it's, at the end of the day, it's perspective. Because if you most people base their present self
That's trippy
on their
though.
past self.
Yeah. Okay.
True. But technically, to your past self, this is still the present. To your present self, this is the present. And to your future self, it's still the present.
Yeah.
So all of you, or all versions of you, and I'm not talking about different decisions you made, but all versions of you in the concept of time as we know it now isn't linear. It's actually turned on its side on a plate and all ascending at the same time.
It's linear because that's how we perceive it, you know?
Yeah. That's how we are able to perceive it.
Yeah. Okay.
Our physical body is able to perceive it in that way.
So what you're saying, it essentially there is a state of being where we can perceive time in a different sense. Kiel.
Yes.
Okay, I'm open to the possibility of it, but because it's not even accessible at this moment, I don't really know to comment on that.
Right. But then, so from like literature that exists and things that exist, you are made aware of people that have superseded the concept of time as we know it now. And obviously, for example, in teachings, I have been made aware of beings that for whom time doesn't exist as it does now.
Yeah.
So
why do what you are talking about is like this higher sense of beings, like these higher frequency beings, and we feel time, but those beings don't necessarily feel time.
For them, time could be like a tangible concept. It could be like for us from moving from here to there could for them be time.
But here again you are theorizing because you can't really comprehend that.
100%.
But what I think, so my interpretation of that is, I think time like exists to feed the ego. Like it's time is a construct, like you said, but this construct, the reason it's there is so our ego can be more solidified. But as you go higher up in frequency, your ego's vibrations, I guess, is more and more. So the solidity of this ego becomes less and less and less and less.
As the vibrations increase, it's less able to stay in that solid form.
Exactly. So it's a more subtler form of ego, perhaps.
Right.
But it still exists.
Right.
But it's very subtle.
Right.
So once you go higher up, the need for time goes away because you don't have to experience time because your ego is not as solid. That's my understanding of how different time these things exist.
Okay, cool. So you're saying even in the present body or the physical body where you are ravaged by time, you could essentially bring yourself to a point where it doesn't matter to you.
Time, you mean?
Yes.
But I don't think... I think our perception is made in such a way, like our brains have manifested in such a way that we are continuously going to perceive time in this way till we die.
Yeah.
After that manifestation ceases to exist. And it's a new manifestation which will happen.
Correct.
I think it's a bit deep, but but
because
we can access states of mind which is beyond this lower frequency of access, and that is through I think what they do in deep meditation, where they go.
And I think even you meditate quite often, right?
Yeah.
Would you say every other day, every day?
Yeah, I try to every day, but now and then I miss a day. Yeah.
Right. So during these, like from when you started to now, you feel that it's easier to access your mind,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
For sure.
Compared to like for example, quietening it on day one and quietening it now is supremely different.
Yeah, I would say so.
You find it easier because you have been putting it into practice.
Yeah.
Therefore,
yeah.
you're
I'm more attuned with like the technique of doing it.
yes.
Yeah. Man.
So then that is our concept is our existence
yeah.
meant to kill off our ego? Is our ego meant to be within us, or is it something that we're supposed to dissolve?
That depends on like that's an individualistic choice though. The ego, which the ego has to make, whether it's going to destroy itself or whether it's going to continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so the concept of Nidula or Kusalvin resides in my ego,
Yeah.
but myself is not that.
Oh, what do you mean? What's the distinction here between the self and the ego?
So I presumed ego was operating from a lower frequency,
Okay.
and that lower frequency most times tells you what to do. Or your brain. What is your brain then? Self, ego, and self.
Your brain is basically a manifestation in order to feed your ego.
Okay.
It's a means to help your ego in this physical realm.
So self is distinct to ego, or are they the same thing?
It depends on how you define it. Now I haven't given a separate definition to ego, self. Any feeling of I call it ego, sense, self, or whatever.
Oh,
But
they're all the same.
to me.
Okay.
That's how I
Okay.
perceive it.
Okay.
But you, is it different or?
So from what I've read,
Okay.
It's the idea I've made of is that ego isn't necessarily is ego thinks because of your past experiences and the environment that is around you. That is not truly you. Yes, it fuels the concept of you to a certain extent, but it is not entirely you. Therefore, the ego tells you how to act and direct yourself based on those things you heard or things that happened to you, and therefore makes decisions for you based on that. But those decisions might not be best because they're coming from a place of self-preservation.
Oh, exactly. I agree with that.
So I don't agree. So in my opinion, I feel like I'm on a journey to quench that ego or to dissolve it.
Okay.
Dissolve it entirely.
To kill it, to destroy
To kill
it.
it.
Yeah.
Because after I can do that is when I can resonate with my true sense of self.
And you call that self, yeah.
Self, yeah.
And this is what what was called Atman or something in Hindu, like the true sense of self.
Right.
The deeper sense of self,
Yes.
like what we cannot access now. Yeah. But I think this is where mine and your beliefs like goes slightly differently in different parts, is where I believe that itself is a subtler form of the ego.
Okay.
Even that deeper sense of self.
Right.
But it is most definitely vibrating on a very high frequency, probably like as it goes up, probably the highest frequencies, where the sense of self is very much less, but it's still a vibration would exist.
Yes.
But there is so much more bliss, there is so much more peace within that vibration, and
Yes.
it's what our Western culture has called heaven and whatever. Yeah, different cultures have given it different words.
Yeah, different ways to analyze it and like.
Yeah, but this itself is a higher state of home, a higher state of residence, a higher state of peace. But even that itself, I feel like there is a tiny bit of impurity, and that impurity is that sense of self, Tama, like in a very small way, it exists.
Like individuality.
Yes,
Or like
yes,
you as something.
You as
as
exactly.
something.
You believe you are
something.
Yeah.
You still have that sense of self.
Yeah.
Right. So to
And why you have that sense of self is because that sense of self has brought you a certain sense of joy. I don't mean happiness per se, but I use the word joy here. It can be like happiness, sadness, neutrality, or whatever. But there's a certain sense of contentment, happiness, joy. I don't know, whatever. There's a certain sense of being which is extremely addictive.
Yes.
Like the ego is an extremely addictive thing.
Definitely.
And that's why people tend to get lost in various identities, because to them that identity they feel themselves
is true, like
the most.
This one, okay, I feel like this one the most. But in a couple of, like, after some time you'll be like, oh, this one, okay, now I feel like this one.
That's the problem with these extremely physical identities, that if you look at it, you'll easily see that your happiness doesn't last in these forms.
Yes.
But if you take like spirituality, and where you're moving into a higher frequency, the bliss lasts for like a longer period of time, because actually you are putting your impurities, you are not feeding them. Yeah.
So for example, the human experience, right?
Yeah.
These impurities, the human experience will always want to experience those impurities. You're yearning for what if, like,
because there are, like I said, bursts of happiness within that.
Yes.
Extremely addictive bursts of happiness. Yeah.
So so I have had experiences where I believe my sense of self was quenched completely. Where I refer from what I've read and what I've kind of read based on other people's experiences, etc., and I've tried to see if there's a similarity. I call it ego death. Where on 2 occasions on psychedelics, I essentially lost my sense of being completely. There was no I. In that moment, I was not even within my physical body, right? My consciousness, I left it, and the moment it left, it's not even like, Kusalvin left his body. No.
Okay.
I just am, right? And I feel this extreme euphoria, this sense of peace. It's not even happiness. No, it's like everything jumbled into one, where it's just bliss, pure bliss, untainted. And I'm not like, there's no sense of male, female, name, age, any of those concepts. In that stage, all I saw was, or all I experienced, right, was a sort of, do you know what mandala? Like a mandala?
Not really.
It's these kind of, it's sort of like that, but not completely. But my consciousness was there, right?
Okay.
And my consciousness was experiencing that moment as if I was everything and everything else was me at the same time.
Yeah.
So in that scene, like, all I saw, everything around me, and this is a closed eye visual, I believe.
Okay, in the sense.
I was on a couch, like my eyes are closed, like my
and
head
it was a
like
completely internal trip, journey,
I thought it was internal, but then how is it that internal when it felt more real
than
this?
Yeah.
Because I felt this insane sense of belonging, of being home. It's hard to describe it, but then in that euphoric state, all I saw was these dials, right?
Okay.
Just so the middle was green, like a fluorescent green. Surrounding it was this gold band, and it's got like these faces. I can see faces, and it's just what do you call, turning, like in concentric circles, which are going, like, one is going clockwise, other one anti-clockwise, the outer ray is going another clockwise.
Is that what a mandala is, where all of that is?
That's
like,
what I that's what I kind of labeled it myself, because I don't know what to call it.
That's the closest thing this physical realm could like show you.
Could show me that is
representative
of that, yes. And everything around it is pitch black. Like if I was in the middle of space, but there's no stars, nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm not even breathing. Like at that moment, I'm just there. And all I see is this glowing light of green, gold, everything, and I can see things in it. And I don't know what I saw, but I do know the feeling that got over my consciousness.
Yeah.
And in that state, I believe I had completely killed off my ego, and even my sense of self was aligned with the universe. So it's not to say that I had maybe I was given a glimpse into what is possible.
Yeah, but Ramdas in one book said like when he asked his teacher in the Himalayas about LSD, and what he said was the teacher was like, when you take this pill, you are in the same room as God, and then through this meditation, what he's doing, his teacher's doing, you become God.
Interesting. Nice. Yeah. Okay. So that concept is very, very
it's a temporary state where you get to that state of being, and psychedelics have given the gateway, I believe, up to a certain time frame to at least like maybe touch it almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the negativity there is most people believe that I saw it through this, I can get there through this.
Okay.
But that's not true. That's not the answer. Psychedelics aren't the answer for you to achieve that sense, that state.
But you can get a glimpse.
Can get a glimpse of
it.
But most people will get lost in it. And that's when they lose their sense of reality, because for them, this felt more real. Yes, at that moment it was more real. But for you to achieve that, psychedelics is not the answer. For you to achieve that, you have to work on your mind, your body, and your soul.
For sure, yeah.
And that's how, for me, it relates with the teachings of the Buddha, of other religions. In essence, a lot of them are saying the same truth.
Thing,
it's just covered by a lot more.
Because there's just one truth this entire universe governs itself on, no?
Yes.
There's one truth where it all exists within.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I believe like ancient man found psychedelics, and this was there in nature, right? So obviously it had to be there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So for them, those psychedelics opened that gateway, showed them what could be. So the primitive ape was shown what could be.
Okay. So this is where your concept of higher consciousness comes in from, like a primitive being, like an ape, no? Yeah, and that's how they evolved into something further.
Yes. Could, like, for example, these mushrooms are growing on the ground. Yeah, for sure they ate it. Maybe they saw some animal eat it and then get high. Then, from seeing what happened to that animal, they said, okay, I can take it as well. What happened in that trip was showing them altered states.
It's a theory, but it's an interesting theory, which makes,
altered states of consciousness.
But my question there is, why do shrooms, if you take shrooms, why do they possess this ability to send us on this massive trip?
Is that for us to contemplate on or enjoy the trip as it is?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can enjoy the trip as it is, but I've always felt like it's strange that it exists, no? It's strange that these gateways exist which grows within the ground, where you can like access these things.
I feel like those are little keys.
Yeah.
Given to man by nature. So technically, if you look at it, man and nature should be in sync. It's not right now, but it should be in sync, and therefore, maybe at the time, this was like the kind of the key. Hey, look past this window. Yes, you got to work on yourself by yourself, but these can show you what you can achieve. So now you have something to aim to you know kind of what you're going to get. You're not blindly following something. But yeah, interesting concepts, like to see how, because there's no way like in ancient history they haven't used psychedelics. This is not a new thing.
For sure.
So how did those ancient cultures, histories like use it, and to what extent did they use it?
So I think the difference is, I think psychedelics and spirituality is one thing, and psychedelics and enjoying sensory pleasures is another thing. Like you can be on, I think a lot of people don't really use it for, like you, like talking with you, I realized that what you've done is like you've tried to understand it more and more. You try to understand your mind more and more while you were on this drug, and that was your point of it. But we see a lot of people who are taking it to maybe ascend in like a egoic sense of like, maybe they're dancing, listening to music, and they feel that experience is much more intense while they are on that drug. And that's like another function of it, yeah?
Right.
I don't know if function is the word, but that's another way it can be used.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's not to say that every time I trip, like I will only meditate. I try to do it now more often than before.
Yeah.
But obviously the first few times I guess I was introduced to it, it was all sensory.
Within that kind of background.
Within that framework. But like now more is, it doesn't, that thing is not important. So for me now it's more like, look within, because there's answers there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me how ancient civilizations used it, because I really believe where we are now is not where those ancient civilizations were at one point. I believe they were way more advanced.
Yeah.
But obviously they got to that advancement through something. There was something there. Maybe psychedelics was one minuscule part of it.
Yeah.
But what caused that great age to just plummet? And then we had to start from what was
It's
minus
also,
one.
it's another thing I believe it is controversial again. But then I think there was communication within like two other civilizations which were present in different parts of the universe. Because our communication right now is how we
Primitive.
take phone calls or like whatever, yeah. But I'm sure like even the pyramids and all, like there are these energy fields and there are multiple probably energy fields throughout the world where you can communicate with other civilizations.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
You can, and maybe who were like technologically and in other ways spiritually advanced too, and they probably came here and they may have given us this kind of technology and we've developed, and maybe we are even descendants of those people.
Very possible.
Yeah.
Very possible concept. Like I've thought about this before. It's super, like, for sure, man.
Yeah.
I mean, who is to say what? But the thing is, would you rather not question this at all and like take it for its face value, or question?
Yeah,
And be inquisitive, like find things, regardless of whether you can completely answer it or not. Be that sense of like inquisitiveness will always propel you to be more than you are as you've been given.
Yeah. And with psychedelics, the thing is, it opens up, I mean, momentarily at least, it opens up, I guess, the solid world you believe to be real, it kind of dissolves almost, no? So I haven't tried any psychedelics myself, but I've tried marijuana, and in marijuana what happens is, like, even the way you taste something, now the taste is different.
Yes.
And we were talking before about, like, architecture makes you see beauty in architecture in, like, a different way. I feel like your perception is deepened almost. You feel things deeply. Say you get into like a negative bad trip, that becomes a lot more amplified. Everything's more amplified.
Your sensory perceptions are on like
on like steroids or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is possible to get to that state normally.
Yeah,
through meditation.
No, but I think the inward part you may be able to get to, but I don't think the outward part you can get to.
Yeah,
like this.
Not feel, touch, sense.
Yeah. And I think when we get somewhere through a psychedelic, it's still pretty clouded from where you can get it through meditation.
Definitely. Because the pathway shown on meditation, you're more in control of why you have to lead up to that.
Yeah, because
whereas psychedelics is like,
exactly, because you are creating the conditions, the tools, you are building it to a very stable kind of third eye opening or whatever.
Where you can hold it.
Exactly.
Where you can hold it open. Psychedelics could open your third eye, but like that. Yeah. And then done.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And after, and also, do you think it works similarly on different people?
Psychedelics themselves?
Yeah.
100%. Why? Everyone's brain chemistry is different. The way everyone perceives the world is completely different. And you can only make guesses at how people perceive the world.
Yeah.
You can never land it. You can land yourself because you're the only sense of self you see. So what's going to affect me is going to affect you completely differently. Why the entire chemistry, the experiment itself is completely different.
Yeah. I think that's my issue with psychedelics, is that because it's not universal, like it's not universal the way it works on another person. While one person can really have like this spiritual opening, another person can go mad while on this drug. And so that is the danger which lies in there.
Right.
Within that key as to what exactly will be accessed and opened.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like not everyone can access it through that medium.
Exactly. Not everyone's gateway is going to be psychedelic.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. For me, I don't want to like push it on people either.
Exactly.
Like whenever, like, I'm not going to be like, take acid. No, because I never know how it's going to affect you. I don't want that on me.
But you can't deny the existence which acid can provide of the dimensions.
It provided me with that platform. Awesome. Might not be the same for you. If you choose to do it, please do it carefully, like in a controlled environment, and like setting is super important, especially with psychedelics. So
I think what it roots to even more is how fascinating the mind experience is.
Definitely. Like I'm so fascinated with how the mind works because while it's on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, especially during like towards the end of an acid trip, most of the time for me it's like, oh, I can achieve this state normally. Like I know I say this line all the time, and it's like, I can achieve this state normally. Why don't I?
Okay.
This state is completely accessible. This heightened sense of being and discoloration of ego and like self can be done. But when you're sober, you don't remember all these things that you remember on your trip. So for me, that's why I write it down. Because those little reminders in my day-to-day, it helps. But I believe definitely, like, if you really want to truly ascend, you have to practice meditation. You have to practice
for sure,
tuning your body. And that's not only meditation, like exercise, things like that are important for you to get in sync. And when in sync is when you can...
I think any spiritual practice, I mean, depending, like Buddhism or like the other, like any spiritual practice is better than no spiritual.
Than none.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because if you keep on vibrating on like this very much lower frequency, like the world's going to be really confusing, I feel like. Because if you take these idols, like we talked about the Matrix and all that, if you take them to be like the absolute ones, it's going to be... life is going to be like extremely confusing for a lot of individuals because they start achieving their goals and they're not really happy. Yeah.
You can see that. Like, you can see a lot of these celebrities, some of them who have achieved gain monetary compensation. They're just like, some of them just drop off the map, right? Like, for example, Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
He was really successful. He still could be. But he chose to completely remove himself from the limelight because I guess, like, to him, oh, cool.
Exactly, yeah.
It didn't add up.
Yeah, but a lot of them, and this is where I think that dimension should exist within you, where they know they're unhappy, but they rather just get into drugs and just drown out their misery and not really do anything about it.
Or like try to achieve contentment through money.
Yeah.
Like buy more, get more property, another land, another car.
Yeah.
It's not gonna change anything at the end of the day.
And like you said, we talked about fear also.
Yeah.
And I remember you mentioning fear a while back, like a long time back. And then I had my exams coming up, and I realized I'm usually not a very much motivated person to study. And the only reason I was studying for my exams was completely fear-based. It was fear that I would fail this exam, so I had to really put in the work. And I realized, like, exams in general are all fear-based. They are 100% fear-based.
I agree. Like that academic concept of you pass this hurdle to become this is flawed because some people don't learn in that manner.
Yeah.
For me as well, I really don't like studying. Like, I'd read into subjects I'm interested in. But a lot of the time, like that parroting thing, I don't like it.
Same, yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, even exams in school and stuff, that whole concept of if you don't pass this, you won't become something in life.
Yeah.
They were like fueling that fear-based concept from the get-go.
Yeah, for sure.
From the time we were like 5 years old, that was the entire concept. So the entire education system is propelling these minds which are like clay on fear.
On fear, for sure. And that's why you get so stressed out before an exam, because that outcome of you failing is like the worst thing possible. But I realized, like, contemplating on that and being okay with failing or passing, you come to a point where you don't really get all that stressed. I mean, I still do, but you don't really get all that stressed. So your motivation is also a strange one now. Yeah.
Definitely. Because it doesn't affect
you as much, yeah.
In a
society sense, it's in a bad way.
It's in a bad way, of course. Because society doesn't deem it.
Yeah, exactly. Once you are okay with failing, then you become a bit of a strange individual, I think.
Yes.
Because while the others are be like, oh my gosh, the exam's so close, we had to study, we had to fail. And once you're like, yeah, we do, and we might fail, no? And you're kind of okay with that outcome.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because you can't completely like.
But to some people, even me saying that, it's like, how can he say that? How can he say you are okay with failing? That's a terrible thing. And a lot of people are like so lost in it that is like the absolute worst possible thing which could happen to them.
They're on like two extremes.
Yeah.
You pass or you fail.
Yeah.
There's no madhyama pratikriya.
Yeah. And once you fall into that extreme, that's like the worst thing possible.
Yeah.
But life still goes on, you know?
Yeah. It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world.
Definitely not on those fucking concepts.
Exactly.
Not a fucking exam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how much self-worth or self-value they've given because of their ability to do that exam. Like, for example, it can be a huge sense of boost of ego if you keep on winning, yeah? If you keep on winning, you can be like, your ego really likes that state.
Of
because
course.
now...
You're used to it.
Yeah, you are better than the rest of them. Now you feel better than the rest of them. It's a trip. Yeah. But then to lose even that sense of identity, it's terrible. And that's why they are so much afraid of failing. Because that sense of identity of what they believe themselves to be is not going to be anymore. And reality is going to prove it to them. And then I think in a deeper sense, their existence is threatened when they are going to fail. Because this is not the concept of themselves they had. And when they can't come into contact with the concept they held as extremely valuable, it's going to distress them like crazy. But the problem was in believing in this concept, in believing that it's going to give us happiness and joy. Because even though it does, it also has this crazy negative side which we do not look into.
So essentially believing that concept is going to work is essentially negative.
Exactly, yeah. It is negative.
Because you're putting your entire like sense of security, belief, like this thing, okay, this is gonna work, like this is gonna make everything positive. But essentially doing that is actually negative.
Yeah.
It's a hindrance to your sense of like being. Because what if you don't get it and you placed all those things on it?
Exactly.
Then the fall is gonna be so much worse. Like it's super hard.
But you created this entire trip in your head.
And a lot of the time, that is what everything is. You've created so many things in your head and you believe these things will happen. And that's why like a lot of people worry. A lot of people are stressed out. Like for me, for I think an entire year, like I was anxious all the time. Paranoia, bordering on like a lot of things. And I presumed it was because of marijuana.
Okay.
But then,
interesting. Okay.
But then I realized it's not actually that. It's my state of being. I just got to change my mindset, change the way I look at the world. And then once I did that, it's like, oh shit.
And marijuana, what it just amplifies that
the
state of being
already.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I started looking at it from a different perspective, and I realized like everything is perspective. Every single thing is based on how you perceive the world. And how you perceive the world, you have to be able to control. Like you have to be able to control your mind, right? Yeah. Otherwise your ego is going to take over. And obviously it's going to whisper things. Some things you don't want to hear, some things you're going to be afraid of course. That's how that ego is built. Why it's built on those past experiences.
Yeah.
It doesn't want those past experiences to repeat themselves.
Yeah.
So for the ego, moving forward means don't do that. Don't walk these things. So even thinking those things is going to lead to, oh shit, this is going to happen, or this is going to happen. So you're operating from a place of fear, and then that place of fear becomes other emotions of like such as anger, jealousy, hate, all fear-based. Anger itself is fear-based. Why? You're fearful of that action taking place. So you're fearful of that scenario. Therefore, you turn that fear into anger. Anger at what you can't control.
It's also like, it's a dualistic world, yeah? So if one end is going to give us a lot of happiness, then obviously we are going to hate the other end. But the truth is, both ends exist and we can't really do anything about it.
You have to
sometimes you're going to experience one end and sometimes you're going to experience the other end.
Yes.
And I think our entire lives, we live in fear of falling into the end we don't want and live in extreme want of the end we want.
And then your entire life is a waste. Why? You were always yearning for more, or what could be, or what should have happened. No, just if you can essentially be present in the current moment, appreciate what you have for what it is, and like find pleasures in the simple things, you will continuously be at that stage you wanted to be at, or you thought was never reachable.
But that's the problem, yeah. The problem is we can't. Okay, put meditation aside. Say you are going on with your day-to-day life. It's difficult to live in the present. It's difficult. Why? Because our minds are made in such ways we believe happiness lies in different places
and concepts.
Yeah, in different concepts. So we are going to want, because of the nature of happiness is also like it dissolves. So we are always on a pursuit to feed our egos. We can't help it, and we are in this trap, and we are going to feed it in different ways.
Yeah. You're like trying to climb a ladder, and then you're getting things along the way, like snakes and ladders. You're achieving certain things.
Yeah.
But all these certain things are just fueling that negative kind of thing.
I think the negative comes in where when you want something, it's a negative. Wanting something intensely is a kind of negative.
Yeah.
Like this, it's like a hunger.
Yes.
You have this hunger to something.
Yes.
And I've seen Western society, like, feed it like it's a good thing. Like, be hungry for it. Be hungry for your dreams.
It's a
be
carnal,
hungry.
like...
Yeah, but it's not really a pleasant state to be in. It's like a fire. You are like constantly wanting. You can't...
And worrying, and you're constantly like in a state of like agitated vibration.
Yeah, exactly.
You're always like...
Because when you're in hunger for something, that means you can't be in the present moment because you are wanting to get to that moment. No?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just got to seize. Like, you take a step back and cease to want.
Yeah, but you can't do that. And I think the only way of doing that is observing your mind as it does all this.
Yes. From a third perspective.
Almost like, stepping back and watching us do what we are doing. Using the mind to see the mind almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for example, sometimes I'll have thoughts and then I'll step back and be like, oh, why did you think that? Or what made you reach that conclusion? Then I'll try to like break it down and then see. And then I'll learn from it. Like, if it was a negative thought that I had, I was like, you didn't really have to think that. But you did. Why?
Very good. Like, I think this what you mentioned over here is basically the dimension to be developed in order to understand our minds. This self-questioning, self-inquiring mindset. Because most of the thoughts which come up are unconscious. Like, we don't do it on purpose.
It's just there.
It just happens.
Yeah.
And so what the common individual does is, once it happens, quickly they identify with that thought and they completely act on it.
They impulse. They give an impulse to it.
Or otherwise what happens is, say it's like a sexual urge or something. The other thing they do is they identify with it, or the religious approach has been, once it comes, like, to suppress it and put it down there. Very little, I think close to like extremely little people let it go, stand back and be like, okay, what is this? What's happening here? And try to understand it. Yeah, because that is a process, that self-observant process, mind-observing process has been something which has been alien for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But I believe some individuals are really on that path to like really understanding what that is. And that's a characteristic they have developed. Because what you mentioned right now, this questioning thing, a lot of people do not have it.
Okay.
And essentially, like, I'm just going to like Buddhist meditation also, like Vidarsana, Vipassana meditation.
Vipassana.
Essentially, that is Vipassana meditation. Like stepping back and this questioning mind into why am I thinking this? Where did this come from? What's the point of this? What am I hoping for in this? And basically, the pattern of the mind has been described by the Buddha. And we are trying to see if his words are true or not.
Yeah.
But we can never believe what that dude said 2600 years ago. We have to understand it ourselves and see.
We have to see it for ourselves for us to believe him.
Exactly.
But to do that, you have to practice what he has preached.
Yeah, and to practice what he has preached is basically that practice of looking at yourself and understanding yourself.
Yeah.
That itself is the practice.
Yes. So the reason I removed myself from Buddhism as a whole, like an entirety, was the way I was taught it.
Yeah.
And that it in itself, it had so many negative connotations.
Sure.
It made me not want to be a part of it. So I think that has affected me to this day and age. But I am still down to talk about these concepts because I identify these concepts because like obviously with the past and things as a child I've been introduced to, but I didn't understand at that time. Now I'm coming to understand.
Yeah.
So a lot of these concepts, yes, I understand them. But obviously...
the truth of the matter is, our teachers who taught us Buddhism at the time, they didn't really understand it themselves.
Definitely not.
They were much more lost.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I believe like we are way more on that track now than...
For sure. Because only a person who is like questioning the matrix, questioning their ego, only a person like that could really go forward in this path. Otherwise, it's not something you can go from like blind belief, because it comes from intuitive understanding.
Within. Yeah, it's from within.
Only when you realize that there is no use of the ego, there's no real use of the ego, not logically understand, because we can logically understand that this ego is problematic.
Yes.
But we can't let it go yet.
Yeah, no.
We can suppress it, but we can't let it go.
You can't completely remove yourself from it.
So the only approach is to properly understand the mind. And that is from stepping out of the mind and watching it as it unfolds throughout the day.
Correct.
And eventually, we will reach a point where we have understood the mind enough that we are able to let the mind itself go, to let the ego itself go. And I think that is the point of enlightenment. But according to science, according to physical science, it's an extremely controversial state of being.
Why?
Because you cannot do a blood test and prove it.
But then you change your testing methods. Obviously, you're...
Exactly. That is what has to be done, yeah?
No, you can't say just because my test doesn't work, this whole thing is wrong.
Exactly.
You change the way you test for it.
If the problem was with your physical measuring device, then switch the device.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But the problem there is, we all are connected in this dimension through the physical realm. So the problem with science, I feel like it's using this dimension to prove what's happening within this dimension. But this dimension itself is limited. So our measuring devices are limited. So we could never really prove anything out of our measuring devices.
Yes.
So that's the limit. Science, although brilliant, they've been able to optimize this dimension. They haven't been able to do things beyond.
To the others.
And this concept of proof becomes the major problem here. Because I've seen what the science guys ask, and they ask it almost religiously now. I believe science has become the new religion.
Yes.
In a physical sense, people are very much more comforting within certain scientific ideas that they are holding on to it so much, they become threatened when someone comes and tells something else.
Yes.
Almost how the church was hundreds of years ago. They are threatened.
The church was threatened by science at that time.
The same way science is threatened now. When you come and tell, your devices are not enough to measure here.
How dare you?
How dare you say that,
threaten devices?
Exactly.
How dare you threaten the very fabric of existence that we've made true?
Yeah. all
Yeah.
the science. I mean, I have respect for science as a person who is like doing medicine,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
growing up.
Of course,
Like
yeah.
I have respect for that, but I also realize it's severely limited. It's severely limited, and you can't like if you really start looking in, you'll see the limitations of it. I think anyone
Yeah,
who would be spiritual
for sure.
would
For sure.
obviously see how limited science is. The concept of proof, the fundamental problem of that is the physicality of it. Our proof has always been something physical and through physical measuring devices. So anything else becomes a fairy tale.
Right. So, okay. So I tell this to people like, just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like just because it's beyond your sense of normal or rational kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like
Yeah.
it's possible.
Mm.
Of course, there's things that your mind or my mind or anyone wouldn't be able to comprehend. Doesn't mean those things are false or don't happen. They happen. Maybe you just don't see it, or
Yeah.
you're not ready.
I think we're moving into an age where we have to be open more than we were. Like I feel like science, like it started off fine, but now again it's building boxes. Like I think that's what happened to our culture also. Like I think at the time of King Ravana and all that, they say like our development was much more, and I think even spiritually and
Yes,
scientifically
yes.
it was
At
very
the
high.
same time, yeah.
And then it has gone down, and we are like holding on to concepts. And science at this point, if it is to evolve, it also has to break the current concepts and do a radical change like it did a few hundred years ago.
Have you heard of this? Because you mentioned Ravana, have you heard of this existence of a Stargate here in where is this place?
Ruanvelisaya.
Not Ruanvelisaya. Was it Ruanvelisaya?
Yeah, I think that's what.
Ranmasu Uyana. Ranmasu Uyana?
Where's that?
Polonnaruwa?
I think it's the Anuradhapura one, no? That is
Anuradhapura.
Yeah. So that is one. I think I'm ashamed of myself. I don't remember the names. It's Ruanvelisaya, I think Jetavanarama and Mirisavatiya. Those three temples.
Okay.
They possess the same energy of like the same as like the pyramids, or that's what they say, no?
Yes. So like it's called Sakura Chakra, or the Stargate of Ranmasu Uyana.
Yeah.
So there was this guy that used scientific instruments to measure the radiation given off, like with a Geiger counter,
Okay.
and the thing just flipped. Like he took it near the rock, and this is just like a stone, like a piece of stone which has been engraved, and they can't read into what the engraving is because it's not words. It's like a diagram of like a circuit, and at the foot of it is 3 seats, like one facing this way, one facing this way, and one facing the rock. Like it has been etched into the stone. And apparently, if you meditate there, you're more likely to open your third eye because that energy is there, can tune your body in more than any normal place. Like you've heard of like how ley lines intersect and like energies of Earth at these certain points. Like you mentioned, like the pyramids, etc. At energy points of the Earth, it's higher. So this place is one of those apparently, and he held it, and only at the rock. Like let's say the rock ends here. So he held it at the rock, the thing goes off. He turns it away, it goes back to zero. So obviously there is things you can't explain, and then at those times they did some crazy shit.
Yeah. I think meditation itself creates a crazy energy field around you.
Yes. So I tried this thing
and I think Sadhguru talked about this, where he said that's why in the Himalayas when you go there, you can physically, certain people can feel that energy, because for thousands of years people have been meditating over here, and now that energy, unlike physical work, mental work, it stays within that atmosphere.
Right.
And I noticed this firsthand when I went to Ajahn Brahm's monastery in Australia when I went on holiday there, and they had their meditation kind of hall, and when I entered that, there was a different energy there, and I was like, shit, like it feels amazing, and I'm sure they reached like deep states of meditation, multiple monks within that particular place. And crazily enough, I went out and I did something else, and when I came back to it, I noticed like my brothers and my cousins were over there, And I opened the door, and they were there, and they were silently there, and they were just closing their eyes and just staying there. And these guys are not into this at all. But they resonated with that energy, and I was mind blown at that, just seeing that.
How it was able to quieten those minds.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know, like you talked about this meter, like of measuring that energy.
Yeah.
I think the next step of science
is to
be
able to measure spiritual energy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's something they haven't been able to.
Yeah. So there was that concept of like your energy sphere, right? So I was like heavily into like trying to traverse through the astral plane and how to lucid dream, and how through lucid dreaming you can traverse the astral plane, etc. So through my readings, one of the first things I found out was that you should be able to protect your energy, because it's very easy for those beings at those lower frequency energies to steal that energy.
Very true. Once you start opening your doorway into those energy, because once you resonate on that, you are also opening doorways for others
to come. So you have to be able to protect your field.
Exactly.
So there was this CIA experiment called the Gateway Process, right? This was classified at the time. I got the entire document and I went through it. So essentially they were testing on how so in states of meditation, your hemispheres of the brain, which normally operate individually, resonate as one. Okay. At this point of resonation, you are able to access different consciousness levels.
Okay.
Yeah. So they try to induce it through sound. So your brain automatically has a thing where if it hears a different frequency from this end and a frequency from this end, it will merge the two together and find the mid. So if it goes 8 from here and a 4 from here, it will essentially become 6 hertz. So through these tracks that they had developed at this place, you were able to reach those resonant states easier. It's the same things you reach when you meditate over prolonged periods of time, but you were able to reach it easier.
Yeah.
So I tried this. Like I listened to the tracks and I put it in 1 ear and listen.
Interesting.
It works to a certain extent, but I think you have to practice like normal meditation, this thing, often for it to help even further. But you can feel your kind of psyche like reverberating, and it's like they use the sounds of waves and chanting Om, and Om is said to be the word of creation,
the universal
everything. So that Om was what changed to Amen, to
okay.
That same word changed throughout the years. So in those tracks, it reverb, like it makes your mind like ascend to like a certain this thing. When I tried it, yes, you do like stop feeling your body and stuff. But the results of that experiment were reports that they were able to astral travel, leaving their physical bodies. So they tried this on soldiers, right? The US.
Yeah.
And they were able to like breach into other places, like leave their physical bodies, but travel across different states, different countries, go to like places they haven't been, and they'll describe things they saw. And once you actually went there, those were things they actually saw.
Okay. Interesting.
Right. So
I've heard of those. I've heard brain surgery while doing a particular kind of brain surgery. I can't remember which, where a lot of people told they had out of body experience. And what they did was they put after the patient got into general anesthesia, this particular doctor, he would try to see if this was scientific. So he would place objects in certain places in the theater after he got into after he was completely like anesthetized. Yeah.
So he never saw them.
So he never saw these objects. Okay. And then after the surgery, like he would take away the objects, and then on the next day he would ask the patient if he noticed anything, and then he would properly tell where those objects were placed, and they would tell he could also see the surgery and properly tell.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So there are small evidences which are popping up,
yeah.
But people are not dwelling as a whole. people are not dwelling into it because they don't want to accept this kind of thing.
Exactly. Because it goes against their normal norms.
Yeah, it's also, I think, like now that you mention it, it's also to do with society, because a larger proportion of people, their minds are working in such a way to preserve these concepts rather than get into something spiritual.
Something new. Something different.
But the next couple of years are going to be different. That's also...
I can feel it as well.
Yeah.
Like I can feel a different, like a shift in consciousness.
Even this conversation we are having, I don't know, like a few years ago, like whether the universe has facilitated such conversations to happen. Now, it's facilitating it more and more. More and more people are even talking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like affirmations and like, what is that other word? Like if you put something out into the universe, you will get it back. It's called...
the law of attraction. Something like that.
Yes, but there's a word... I can't remember. Like I talk to Mitara about this like all the time. I can't remember what the word is. Anyway. So essentially you put these... Because at alpha states or states of meditation, your mind is essentially in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
So while you're in the quantum realm, if you put thoughts and certain things that you want into that realm, you are able to draw that reality towards you. Because in the quantum realm, there's so many possibilities, right? So essentially what you want has already happened.
Yeah, basically what you're talking about is manifestation.
Manifestation, yes.
Yeah, okay.
You manifesting your reality.
Yeah.
So there's this guy called Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I've heard of him, yeah.
So I was reading his book and like he talks about that, like manifesting your reality how you want it to. And he has like he's also like meditation, different exercises, things like that. And he talks about his personal experiences. How he has, like for example, he said once apparently he was after some lectures and stuff that he had done, he had gone home, been sitting in front of the fireplace. He had essentially met a younger version of himself.
Okay.
Which had been shown to him by some lady in like white. But again, it's like there's like little examples, like you said, of people doing the supernatural, of breaching into the unknown and achieving results. But society has deemed it not scientifically probable. Therefore,
yeah. And another thing, I think it's almost time up. So I'll end on that. I love that word manifestation. I feel like it can be used in like different senses. But the way I see it is, we are unconsciously always manifesting. So meditation, I mean, the process you said is a conscious manifestation. So consciously, when you manifest it, I'm sure it's much more powerful, because like the energy is now through consciousness also. So that works a lot more. And I think people do this unknowingly before sports games, like before football games, they all get together and they imagine themselves hitting the goal, winning.
Yes. And it happens.
That's because there's a large amount of people who are manifesting the same thing to happen. So they're essentially creating the conditions for it to happen. Yeah. But the unconscious manifestation is our manifestation through our attachment. Like we don't even know, like for example, say power or wealth or something, we can really want that kind of thing. And we'll always be manifesting that kind of concept in our head because we think it's valuable.
Yes.
We might even not be aware of this process, but we are doing it. And essentially that's why people eventually get rich. They've been manifesting it unconsciously or consciously. But a lot of things, like for example, so this physical body, I also believe in that way is a manifestation. For example, in order to experience this realm, we needed our eyes, we needed our sense of touch, our sense of hearing, our sense of taste to taste all that good food. I mean, why do we even have this thing called a tongue? If our existence only meant survival, a gut would just be enough. You could just put in the food and into the gut it goes. But we have this crazily advanced sensory organ called the tongue, where we can pick up all these different kinds of varieties of taste which we won't be able to finish tasting in a lifetime. But all these exist because all this has manifested itself. Every time we taste something really good, we automatically manifest another tongue. Because unconsciously we have enjoyed it. Unconsciously we have attached ourselves to this food. And thus goes the cycle. And this is where I think the cycle of samsara comes in. This constant unconscious manifestation. But we can't help it.
Can't help it.
And we've been,
That's nature.
Yeah. And consciousness is essentially the movement out of it. And eventually, once you understand and through consciousness, you can eventually move out of the mind itself,
right.
out of ego itself. Yeah.
So you wouldn't need a physical body to experience it then, because you've surpassed it.
Yeah.
Then you would go into those higher realms of existence.
Yeah, no. I think that the going into the higher realms of existence is knowing that even tasting and even all these physical sensory pleasures are on a lower frequency. And they are very momentary. I mean, even just look at it, it's pretty momentary, you
just
know?
Now.
Yeah,
Done.
like say you're hungry and you're eating like pizza, like the first few bites are the best. Go into a few bites later, I mean, it's like any other food.
It's not the same as,
yeah. But it's the same pizza.
Yeah.
But you're perceiving it different now. Like
Yes.
those frequencies are much harder to maintain.
Definitely.
But I feel like as you go inward, those frequencies are higher.
And they fluctuate. And
yeah, they last maybe for a longer period of time, the peace and all that. But even they have their limitations. While the approach is, I think the Buddhist approach has been to let go of the lower ones and the higher ones.
Yeah.
But to experience all and understand why neither of them are whole. Neither of them are going to give you a real sense of happiness, of joy.
Right. Misplaced. Everything is misplaced. Right.
But in order to understand, you have to experience and see that it's not really what you were looking for.
Understood.
But the thing is, like, your journey and my journey is completely different, because what you hold valuable is different to what I hold valuable.
Yes.
So I got to work on where I believe happiness exists and look really there if happiness exists. While you got to look where you believe happiness exists. So I think the path is very different.
It's always different. Yeah. And you can't compare yours, like my path to another person's path. But as long as you know, like, hey, you're on the same path. Cool. Are you okay? Cool. You're okay? Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, like, take care of one another while you're on that same path.
I feel like the program is the same. The data is different. Where you are applying the program is also different.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool, man.
What we're talking about is something extremely difficult to put into words. And even though me and you resonate with these terms,
yes,
another person might listen to this and be like, I don't.
Because they might not have gone, like, might not be on the journey at all. So then they won't be able to understand it.
That, and like you said, the language barrier may also exist.
Definitely. Because the way we are explaining certain things, even though it might not be the same way, like you and I get it, because we've experienced it.
Yeah.
But then for someone else, they haven't gone to that. So their experience is limited to what they have.
Exactly.
Therefore, our words might mean something completely different to them.
Yeah, fascinating.
Good shit.
I hope you all enjoyed. So if you all have any questions, any comments, please do leave a comment or ask any questions. We are open to any kinds of criticism, both good and bad. And if you found this useful, do like, subscribe and share it around if you think another person could find it useful. And if you think another person could like benefit from this kind of conversation, so definitely share it around. And we'll see you in a future one, I guess. Yeah.